All right, Madam Chair, you are live.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. I'm going to call this meeting of the Board of Supervisors of Elections to order at 7:07 p.m. on June 18th, 2020. Roll call. Eileen Leahy, Chair.
Brianna Cuffey, member.
Regina Watkins, Aldridge City Clerk.
Ashley Leonard, Assistant City Attorney.
Great. All right, everybody. I did get a chance to look at the minutes. Brianna, did you get a chance to look at them? Oh, I'm not hearing you. Unmute.
She's on mute.
Sorry.
Okay.
I don't think I had anything. I don't have any notes about it.
I don't either. They looked okay to me. So if you're good with them, you want to make a motion?
Motion to accept the minutes.
All right, I guess I'm the second, so all in favor? Aye. Okay, minutes are approved. First item on the agenda is just a review of the work session that we had today. Brianna, jump in if you'd like. I appreciate you being there today. I thought it went well. There were some questions. The first one up was the which one? The MOU resolution. And there were some good questions about finances, which we need to take a look at in terms of what was the final tally for 2017 and find out what it might be for the next election. I think one of the things to think about is asking the mayor's office to contact the county executive's office to find out if there can be some sort of arrangement. Ashley, how would that happen?
Repeat that for me.
I was wondering, well, let me go back. In 2017, Mayor Panelides had contacted the county executive. And so technically the Board of Elections, they ran it without additional costs. Then for the special election, we had to pay for it. So would it be appropriate then for Mayor Buckley to contact County Executive Pittman?
Yes, that's how it would need to go, because I believe for 2017, Panelides and was it Shu at the time?
Yes.
Agreed to sort of a deal between the two governments. So
Okay.
It probably need to be approached the same way.
So would I be the person to contact the mayor's office, or is that something you would do, or what would be the next step?
I mean,
for that?
you should probably reach out on behalf of the board. You're welcome to copy me, and I will facilitate to the best of my ability, including telling them how it happened in 2017.
Okay. And I'll try to pull the numbers for that election. And actually, I think Cliff probably has the best handle on it, and see if he can help me with that and get that information together. And there was, I think I have some notes. There were some questions about the vote by mail. Overall, they seem to be pretty positive. Alderman Savage expressed interest in it. He also asked about moving the primary election date earlier to give candidates who win in the primary more time to raise monies and to campaign. But that's a code change, and I would foresee that happening with the if he wanted to introduce something like that or pursue it. But I don't really see it at this point on our docket at all.
I was ready to say we're going to be running it close because I think that the dates of the election are in the charter, and that takes 50 days to be approved.
Right. So, I mean, if it's something he wants to pursue, fine. But, he mentioned July, and to me, July would just be a really tough month.
Yeah, that would be a big change.
Yeah, because the ordinance would take 3 meetings to actually get approved by the council or the charter amendment. And it possibly couldn't get done because the charter amendment would be referred to rules, and we just don't have time before August.
Right. So if he brings it up again, we'll follow up. But at this point, I don't think there's really much we can do about it. Let's see what else he had. Yeah, there's also some information wanting about for the financial information on vote by mail. Alderman Gay asked about how much it would cost in terms of, oh, let me back up. Actually, Alderman Tierney, I think, was next, and she asked about having election materials translated into another language. And I shared with her what Ashley had provided for me earlier this week, which is currently the only place in Maryland that is required to have election materials in a second language is Montgomery County. And that could change in 2020, but we won't know, I think, until about probably July of 2021.
Yeah,
So
that was the estimate on the census website.
mhm.
It's one of those things, I think that we could start doing some initial like informal outreach to sort of help with those sorts of things, including all the candidates could help with that, but trying to do like an official change of that magnitude,
Right.
especially when we don't have any guidance under federal law, we would be doing it voluntarily, opens us up to why are we just doing Spanish? Why aren't we doing other
Right.
languages?
Well, the census actually will stipulate, I'll send out the Federal Register. I contacted Joe Torrey and he sent it to me. And so it's section 203, it's under the Department of Commerce. And they actually stipulate what second language or third, or some places need more than 2 or 3 languages, based on the calculations from the census. For instance, I thought it was interesting, Bergen County, New Jersey has to have it in Korean. So I agree with you. If they're telling us we don't have to do it, by doing it, we might open ourselves up. But I think we need to think a little bit ahead if we have to pivot quickly or hopefully ask for an exemption. My thought was to check with Joe Torrey to see what they may have provided as far as just information option. And that's what I think Alderman Gay was referring to when I mentioned that we might be able to put something in saying for more information, contact such and such, and that would be in Spanish, and hopefully there would be a Spanish speaker that could assist. I'd have to check. There used to be a Spanish speaking, one Spanish speaking person up at the State Board of Elections, but he is retired. So we'd have to find out if we even have somebody.
We do. We have a Spanish, City of Annapolis has a Spanish liaison. She was just hired. Yeah. And
Okay, so that would be another
Berenice
resource.
speaks Spanish also in the mayor's office.
Okay.
And I think there's a drop down on the
Right.
city website. If you need a form in a different language, you can select that. I thought I saw something like that, but I'll check.
Okay, well, it's something to look into. And I think, Alderman Gay's concern was, is there the potential for somebody to sway somebody towards another candidate? And I think most of this information, would almost be like scripted as far as what, it's really about just filling out the forms and how to do that. Rihanna, you had commented with him. What was your take on all that?
The way he phrased it, it sounded like his concern was that, the person translating would basically be pushing their own political agenda on the person, maybe mistranslating or not translating it, to the T as it should, as it reads, to influence the person voting. That's how it sounded to me, which is why I had mentioned, it's just like when people are in person and they get someone to, they sign the little affidavit about having someone assist them. Poll workers can't really go up to the 2 people and say, hey, are you telling them who to vote for?
Right.
They sign the affidavit, and that's, you kind of hope for the best. And so that, and that's what it sounds like to me. Just like with, vote by mail, this last go round, surely people had, conversations at the dinner table about who they wanted to vote for and whatnot for filling in the circle. So.
Right. Well, and also, I'm thinking, it's an information thing. So it would be from somebody who is an employee of the election, the election office. And so it's like any other asking for information. And if we go with the state board, I mean, they do a good job of documenting what gets called, what gets called in and what's the essence of the conversation. So that was just one idea, that there might be an opportunity to at least, if not translate everything into election materials, to have some way that at least advertise and part of outreach, that if people do have questions, where they can get them answered. So, and that was pretty much it on that part. And then the absentee ballot deadline, I really just gave them an update on why we were doing it, and there really weren't any questions on that. So I think that covers it. Anything else, Brianna or Ashley?
No.
No, okay.
That's about it.
It went pretty well. All right. Next thing, I'm sorry if this is showing up. I have my agenda here. Let's see. Okay, that went. Next item is legislation, city election year expenses, and the county MOU. I did touch base with Joe Torrey this week, and he said he would rather get started on the MOU sooner rather than later. So kind of, Ashley, I'll kind of take your lead as far as what would be next steps.
Well, I mean, I already did my sort of suggested mock-up. I would suggest the board looks at it, and if you're okay with it, or if you've already looked at it, then we send it over in red line form to Joe and say, these are sort of our wish list changes to the MOU. I believe I used the 2019 one as the basis. And say, this is our wish list of things to sort of clarify or update. Please review and let me know if you guys would be open to any of them. And I would just I would start it that way. That gives them our whole wish list, and they'll come back with either what they can or can't do. I don't think it will be a super complicated negotiation, because this is our third MOU with them.
Right. Now, is that something we can do between, like, in the next week or so, and just say, yes, we agree with it, or do we have to meet and vote on it? To send the red line?
I don't think you have to vote on it yet, only because it's purely in draft form. Now, once we get their comments back, and I think we get it to a point that it's like a final, all the parties have sort of agreed in principle, then you probably should take a final vote that you're okay with where it has ended up. And then accept it.
All right.
Because right now it's just sort of, it's just a draft, and who knows how they're going to respond.
Okay. Well, let's shoot for the next week or two for all of us to take a look at it, put in our comments, and then send it up to them. And then hopefully they usually turn around pretty quickly. And then we could look at it in a more formal basis in July and kind of get the ball rolling. Does that sound feasible?
Yeah, I have a question. For the previous election, we had to have a resolution go in front of the city council before the MOU getting permission to work with the county. Do we have to do that resolution again? And if so, when?
That should already be slated to go. That was one of the items we talked about at the work session. So that resolution slated to go. Now, we did not attach the actual MOU with it, but the resolution has the authority for us to start negotiating an MOU.
Oh, okay.
So assuming that resolution gets passed, I mean, we're a little bit ahead of the gun, but once that resolution gets passed, that'll give the board the official authority to finalize and enter into the MOU.
Thank you,
Okay.
Ashley.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if we get that back and forth done over the summer, hopefully we can just start moving in early fall. So that would be great.
So is the goal to put that on the city council's agenda by the first meeting in September?
If it's feasible.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it should be, because like I said, it's our third MOU. So the only changes I made are like our true like clarifications or wish lists based on things learned. We don't have to sort of sort out every material term at this point.
Right. I think we're going to have to find out the financials is really what it's going to come down to.
Yeah,
my sense
correct.
is that they're comfortable having the the county board do it. It's just how much is it going to cost?
Okay.
So we'll have to do that. So speaking of cost and expenses, where are we as far as going into the FY21 budget for election expenses? Things like bringing an associate on, getting, things printed and all that. Do we have money?
I sat through the budget meetings and I sat through the budget meetings when they approved the budget. I didn't hear any conversation about elections, period. So unless I missed something, I don't know. That's a question that we're gonna have to
I
ask.
thought there was a request for, I thought there was a request for 25,000.
That was for the Office of Law to have interns. And that was approved.
But I thought in an earlier meeting, back when Cliff was chair, that we asked for money to be put into the budget.
Okay, I think we will probably have to send an email to Jody to ask her exactly what is in the FY21 budget for elections, because I am not aware of anything at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. I have not been involved in the budget at all.
Or we could ask Karen. We could ask Karen and Jody. We could send an email to Karen and Jody and ask them, what is the status or what's in the budget related to elections.
All right, is that something you would do, Regina?
I can do that. Yeah, I can do that after we hang up.
All right. Find the money.
Okay.
Okay. I got a fly running around here. Okay. Can you all still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, next item on the agenda is the election year calendar. I'll be honest, I hadn't looked at it again. I think we looked at it briefly at the last meeting, and Regina, you and I talked about putting in the city code
Sections. Yeah, it was already in the draft that I sent over. I don't know what happened.
Well, it was in the one that I think Takia did, but
Yeah.
then Cliff worked on it and his version didn't have it.
Okay,
So I don't know if they're the same.
Okay, so I'm going to find
version.
I'm going to find the email that I previously sent, and I'll resend the email with the calendar and with the dates in it. I mean, with the
All right,
code.
but if you would look at but Cliff did look at it, and he, I think, may have made some changes.
And I'll find Cliff's
So-
email.
Okay, so I think Brianna, if your memory is the same as mine, we looked at Cliff's version, and then it was just a question of making sure that one, his and Takia's lined up together with the city code insertions.
Yeah, we just needed to cross check them.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll find those two documents attached to that and create one email, send it to you guys so we can talk about it again, okay?
Okay, because we need to get that voted on at the next meeting before August.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Are you guys planning on meeting in August?
No, I'm afraid to. That's
We
why we're gonna do
remember what
everything in
happened
July.
last time we brought that up, so no.
Okay. Just a question. Just a question. Okay.
All right,
So-
next item is correspondence update. So
I did send a
This
letter
is
to
in
Mr.
regard-
Conlon.
you did, okay.
Yes, it
So
was
Mr.
mailed.
Conlon, when was it mailed?
It was mailed to him, let's see, we had city council Monday.
Okay, and did he get an email too, or just the certified mail?
I just sent it through the regular mail, actually.
That's fine, okay,
Yes,
that's fine.
Yeah, because it's considered first class.
Right, so Mr. Conlon responded to Cliff's letter, basically kind of voiced some his dismay that it had gone through the city of law. I spoke with Ashley and basically just drafted, I think I sent it out to everybody, just drafted saying, you can certainly take it to the Federal Elections Commission or the State Board of Elections, but there's nothing in our city code that says there's been a problem. So Ashley, do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, no, I mean, I get, he voiced some concerns that my office reports to the mayor. But in reality, all our office did was provide you guys with the relevant code sections and or lack thereof. There was a decision. If there's legitimately not much in the city code that addresses this, because the city code doesn't address most modern forms of communications. So
Correct. So so that letter went out to him, and so we'll see if he has any further concerns, and if so, we'll address them. Next item is the campaign fund report filing. We've received Alderman Gay's right at the last meeting, and the Annapolis Democratic Central Committee. Mr. Moyer and I have been communicating, and he
sent his today in an email.
Good, okay.
Yes,
So,
and you also had one from Giannis.
okay, so my understanding was Giannis wants to close out his campaign. What I recommended, well, let me go back. What I recommended Mr. Moyer was he just needs to pay off his loans. He needs to document that he got the loans and that he's paying them, because he has the money. So that will wipe the loans off and make it simpler. He was talking about closing his campaign, but I think because he still has money, he wants to think about how he wants to handle that. So that's fine, as long as, he's got, the reports up to snuff. Now, Mr. Cacchiani, he had a number of loans. He didn't have any money. So as a candidate, he could give himself loans. So again, I told him, document the loans. According to city code, he can make them contributions. He can put in the disbursements of what he used that money for, and then zero out. And then he says he's going to submit those. So you said he did submit them, Regina?
Yes. I think they are
Okay.
attached to the email. If I have them, I'll
So
forward
the
them.
question was, that's fine. So the question was, how does he close the campaign? And I didn't really have an answer to that. I just said you could put it in your email. And that's the same question that I guess Mr. Gallagher has, is how do you close a campaign?
Like I was telling you earlier, I think Mr. Gallagher already closed his account, but I have to get back into the file to find the last one, because I'm thinking that he closed it.
Now, do they have to write a letter? Is there a form they have to make up?
They just write final on the top and make sure that their account is has a zero balance.
Okay. But we don't really have any procedure, do we?
The code states that if you want to close out your campaign account and you still have funds, there's a section that states that you need to donate the funds to your central committee or to the city to defray the cost of the election.
All right.
So
I was just thinking if there was some way of having them actually stated other than final report, but whatever.
Yeah, they write final on the top.
Okay. So if you would check on Mr. Gallagher. So what I would propose doing is for the next meeting, let's get, even if we can look at them ahead of time, look at these 4 reports that hopefully are in good shape, get them taken care of, because we're going to start getting new reports July 1. And we'll have to review them. And I'm going to check if memory serves me, Cliff put together a good checklist on reviewing them. So I'm going to ask him if we can use that again. Didn't we do that, Brianna, on some previous ones? He had kind of a checklist on what.
He had a checklist in like a spreadsheet form.
Yeah, so let's see. And I think that worked pretty well, so we can use that. Let's see. And so then Regina, did the email go out to all of the candidates as far as the next batch of reports being due on the first? Okay, so that's.
It wasn't. We sent an email and we followed up with a letter, because the code requires a letter goes to the candidates and the treasurer, so we sent them letters too.
Okay, great. Okay. Anything else on that topic?
No.
No. Okay. The update on the campaign fund report on the fillable PDF. I touched base with Cliff. He's just been very busy with work and is going to be working on it. I asked him if he could, for the July meeting, have something that was pretty much at least in a test form that we could maybe do some testing over the summer during August so that we could finalize and have it available come September. So that's what he's shooting for. I know that he said he did go and look at the city of Rockville, what they do, and got some ideas from them. And he was also looking at some other areas to see if there was a way of simplifying or how other places did it. But I know he's working on getting a final version that we can take a look at. Having the teleconferencing hasn't assisted it either. So anything on that front?
So are you asking that at the next meeting, we get a presentation on how this form works?
Yes.
So I'm
So
gonna reach
basically-
out, I'll send an email to Brian, and I think Stephanie's working on this. I
Well, let
think-
me check with Cliff and see if he's going to be, it may be a paper form at that point. Because
Paper?
I also asked him to do some testing of it over the summer. So that might involve more.
Okay,
Because I think he needs to send it out to a few people and try it. You know, maybe Mike Day, Brown, if you can take a look at it, just have some people kind of, you know, run through it and see how it works.
Okay.
Okay. And then, Ashley, I know we've talked about the electronic filing, but can you update us in terms of where we are with that so that we can use it?
Per the city attorney, he says we definitely need to do a code change to do it. So I need to I had drafted some older legislation. I probably need to look at it again and see what it looks like. And then we'd have to put that up on the agenda. I know the next agenda for sure, I think is full, and probably the one after that. So I would think maybe we could maybe do the last meeting in July if we're ambitious
Okay.
enough about it.
All right, well, if nothing else, they could always just print it out and submit. These are for the fund reports.
Yeah.
And we still haven't reconciled what we would do for an e-signature anyway, have we?
No, because there's different types and depending on the type would depend on what type of, you might need software for us to pay for, you would want to do it. So there's a bunch of different considerations. I know the county has started using DocuSign for things. But I don't know if the city hasn't sort of made any steps towards that, but.
Okay, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there then. There was at the last meeting, I think I brought up how to handle people that just want to submit them or don't want to use the computer. And I did go back to the state board, and they do require it to be done on the computer, and they send people to the county libraries in terms of having computer access, or they can contact, I think, the Board of Elections for assistance. So we can look at that in terms of when we're looking at how the procedure works. But it is expected that they'll use that form. But again, we don't even have electronic filing yet, so.
You do have language in the code, though, that you guys can prescribe the form and how it's set up. So I think you already sort of have some discretion related to
Okay.
that.
Okay, great. All right. Anything else on that?
I'll take a look at the legislation and see where we are. And get you
Okay.
something.
Great. So the next topic I put in for just FY21 objectives, and I went back and just looked at, I think this is the nurse in me coming out or the educator coming out, that I have to have a list of things that I gotta shoot for. So the top 5 things that we had identified in 2018 was to look at the MOU between the city of Annapolis and Anne Arundel, which we're doing. Review city code a little bit more in detail. I'm not sure we're able to do quite as much as what we had hoped to do, but we're working on it. Primarily looking at campaign fund reports, which is great. The absentee ballot procedure we've addressed. Staffing and funding is something that we still need to work on. Some other things, outreach, and then communication to voters, and talk about an emergency action plan. So I'll send this out again for all of us to just take a look at and just kind of think about what we, if we want to change anything. I'll probably strike through things that I think we've already done, and if there's anything that we need to add to it. But it would be nice if we had like 5 things to focus on.
Yeah, don't forget about your challengers and watchers, because remember the horror story over at the American Legion?
Yes. So in fact, Brianna and I talked today, and Brianna has graciously accepted to put together a candidate handbook. And that will include things like challengers and watchers. And that also dovetails with having some sort of orientation for candidates. I think new candidates versus older candidates, there's a difference in how we approach them, but
so if you have an
challengers and
orientation,
watchers.
so if you have an orientation, is that going to be part of something that goes into the MOU for the county, or is that something you guys going to do?
It'd probably be something we would do, I would think.
Okay.
What do you think, Brianna?
Yeah, I think it's just something we could do.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the goal partly, Regina, is to keep people from calling you all the time with all these questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I know Eileen's gonna send me some of the stuff she wants me to look over as far as incorporating. So if you have any frequently asked questions that you would also like addressed in there, do feel free.
Well, I'll look through the 4,600 emails Ashley and I replied to during the last election and pull out the things for you, okay? Actually, it was 4,600 emails.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to condense that into a little, maybe a 46-page FAQ, I guess.
Okay. Okay.
So I don't think we're hoping to change code. I think we're just hoping to educate new and former candidates to what the code is.
Okay.
Or at the very least, have it in a consolidated location, and that we can point them.
Hey, Eileen, remember, what is her name? Julie, what's her name? She ran against Ross.
Yeah, Julie Mussog.
Yeah, her treasurer had an issue with something. Remember? And she came in like 3 days in a row with an issue. Do you recall what that was? Because we did tell her we were going to address it prior to the next.
I'll pull that up. There's that one. There's also, there's things like just, documenting the loans and looking at the PDFs and knowing which form you have to use. But I know what you're talking about. And there was also another.
I know there was something about signing checks. Wasn't 1 or 2 people signing checks or something an issue?
Yeah, husband and wives and stuff like that. Yeah.
And then, it just went in my head and out again what the one of the other issues was. Oh, the concept, the whole affidavit, if they're not going to raise money.
Because there's an affidavit on the certificate of candidacy, and then there's a separate affidavit, and there was a conflict in it.
Right. So that type of thing. So we'll gather all those sorts of things and give them to Brianna. And but those are recurrent topics, so it's worth highlighting them.
Okay.
Let's see. Did I skip anything?
Yeah. You're on political action committees.
Oh, okay. So I meant to, for the political action committee, let me see where I am. I meant to contact the progressives, or the PAC for the Black progressives. I'm sorry, I don't have the name in front of me. and just haven't had a chance to do that. But I did touch base with Ashley because according to our code, it appears that PACs are considered a political committee. And in our code, it states that a political committee's treasurer and chairman has to be a resident of Annapolis and a registered voter.
Mhm.
So since you and I talked, Ashley, I went to the state, and the state pretty much says the same thing. So I don't know if, I think what happened is they put the PACs in with political committees, but when they're talking about that section, they're really not talking about political action committees. They're talking about candidate committees.
Yes, I think so.
So
I would agree with that assessment.
Yeah.
Because
So,
I don't see that we can tell candidates that they can't accept money from like PACs, even in the state of Maryland, you know, but I think there's a differentiation between PAC versus who we want to be disclosed on campaign forms. So I think it's sort of like,
right.
that's what we need to sort of divvy up, who we actually want, which types of organizations we want to get reporting from to monitor the organization themselves, and then which we don't need to monitor, but candidates would need to disclose on their forms.
So my thought was I was going to give Jared a call and just check how they do.
I
The way
go
it
with that.
reads, yeah. So we'll figure that out. But I just thought I would mention it that, because what had happened was I was reading the code in anticipation of contacting this new PAC, and then I saw it. So I'll follow up with that. I don't think it's been an issue before, so I don't want to make any new issues, but we'll just have to clarify it. Anything else then?
Mm-mm.
Any other new items for the next meeting?
Did you want me to resend my MOU to everyone? That elections MOU with my comments?
Sure.
I just
sure
don't
you
know if you guys
probably
had
sent it.
the last version or not.
Okay. The other thing I was thinking of, and Ashley, you can help us with what your thoughts on this were. Would it be beneficial for having Michael Lyles come to our next meeting to talk about the upcoming election and what's needed? Or would that be something that maybe you and Regina and anybody else wants to meet with him separately? But just to kind of touch base about who's doing what, and then also where are we going to put the election office?
I think he might prefer a more informal meeting.
Okay.
Instead of coming to your guys' like official meeting. I mean, that's just my thought. Okay. You might also, not that he wouldn't be happy to meet with you, but you might also sort of want to give him like bullet points in an email in advance of like sort of the stuff that you're looking for him to address. Okay. I assume he will probably delegate some of the stuff to me since he knows I'm your liaison, but I know he has talked about at least space issues in your in the office. So yeah, I would just send him an email with your sort of like wish list of what you want to talk for and see if you can set up an informal meeting.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. I'll do that. Sounds like we already have enough items for the next meeting. Our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, July 16th. So it's early in the month. Okay. Any other items, discussion, topics?
On this end.
All right. Well, I'm sorry that Cliff didn't make it. I'll touch base with him afterwards, later this week. Touch base with him and go over what we discussed. And I'll send that email to you, Brianna, with those topics.
Okay.
And then I'll check and see what else I've got to do. So, all right. Sounds like we got covered a few things and we've got an agenda for July. All right.
Motion
and I
to
have
adjourn.
a motion to adjourn then?
Motion
All
to
right, a
adjourn.
second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
So we adjourn at 7:47.